If this man were not evil, we would not have handed him over to you. Pilate said to them, Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law. The Jews said to him, It is not lawful for us to put any man to death. This was to fulfill the word which Jesus had spoken, to show by what death he was to die.
There are a number of interesting points here. The fact that it was early in the morning, we mentioned last time. Early in the morning, and yet they went to the house of Caiaphas. From the house of Caiaphas to the Praetorium means that Pilate had already been alerted to this coming action. But Pilate himself was up and awake and ready, dressed, and was in the place of judgment early in the day, which was a very unusual procedure. The Jews themselves, while they had passed judgment on Jesus in the Sanhedrin, did not enter the Roman Praetorium because that would defile them and they would not have been able to have eaten the Passover at the regular time. And so he went to Pilate, left the area where they could not enter, and came out to them and asked them the question, What do you accuse Jesus of doing? And they did not specify what it was. They said, if he was not an evildoer, we would not have brought him to you. Well, Pilate said, judge him yourselves. But they said, we want the death penalty, and you Romans have forbidden that to us. Now this goes on to say, this was spoken that it might be fulfilled, the prophecy of Jesus, that the form of death that he would die. This, of course, refers to the Old Testament psalm quoted by Jesus, the 22nd Psalm, which, among other things, states that they pierced my hands and my feet. Now, that 22nd Psalm is a tremendously remarkable prophecy. The Jews had had from time immemorial stoning as their means of capital punishment. Now, it is not necessarily to be expected that they would be able to predict even death by any source. But if they were able to predict death from any source, if they had enough insight into human nature to know that if a good man came, a really good man, that this would be as offensive to people as a really bad man would be. You see, society does not want too much deviation from the average. When Jesus died upon Calvary, he died between two thieves. Not only is there a contrast here, but the society which condemned Jesus for being too good condemned the thieves for being too bad. Society does not want extremes. They want you to be like them. Stay in the middle. A little bad, a little good. But when the 22nd Psalm, written way back, either a Davidic Psalm or shortly thereafter, would put it hundreds of years before Christ, is able to specify that they pierced my hands and my feet. That is, that he was going to die by means of crucifixion, which was not at that time practiced by nor really known by the Jews. What a tremendous insight into the future and proof of the foreknowledge of God as to coming events. And so they have to get now the Roman permission to execute Jesus in order that he may fulfill the Old Testament prophecies of this, they pierced my hands and my feet. So we read again now, beginning in verse 33. Perhaps I should read one verse from Luke. It says, they began to accuse him. We found this man perverting our nation, that is, leading them astray, and forbidding us to give tribute to Caesar. The very opposite of the truth. Because Jesus, when they had tried him as to the question, shall we pay tribute to Caesar, and it had pointed out to them that the image on the denarius was the image of Caesar, Jesus had said, it must be Caesar's. Give it to Caesar. Jesus had by no means taught them not to pay tribute to Caesar. This is a definite lie on the part of these accusers. When he said that he himself is the Messiah, a king, this is more to the point. Jesus did say, my kingdom is not of this world, otherwise would my servants fight. But he did admit to being a king. As for not paying tribute to Caesar, this was never true of the teachings of Jesus. So we read again in John chapter 18 and verse 33 following.
Pilate entered the praetorium again and called Jesus and said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you say this of your own accord, or did others say it to you about me?" Pilate answered, "Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingship were of this world, my servants would fight, that I might not be handed over to the Jews. But my kingship is not from the world." Pilate said to him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice." Pilate saith to him, "What is truth?" After he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them, "I find no crime in him."
Some interesting items here. Back in the praetorium, Jesus is asked, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He has by this time been mocked. He's going to be mocked again, but he had been mocked. He is surely an unimpressive figure here. Under arrest, weary from the long night of prayer, no sleep now for something like 36 hours. And you a king? Jesus said, did somebody put you up to this question, or did you think it up yourself? And Pilate, with that disdain for the Jew that the average Roman had, he said, "I'm not a Jew like you." He said, "Your own nation turned you over to me." He said, "I don't understand these things." And Jesus said, "I'm not a king of this world. My kingdom is in another world," which of course Pilate did not even believe in. "So you are a king." And he looked at him. Here's an interesting contrast between this man, the cynical man of the world, representing the greatest empire in many ways that the world has ever known. An empire which even today is being put back together again in what we call the European common market. And Pilate, representing Rome, looks at Jesus, and Jesus tells him that whoever is of the truth hears my voice. And Pilate said sneeringly, "What's truth?" and never waited for an answer when he could have had it. Sometimes you and I ask questions and don't wait for the answers when God could give them to us. So Pilate tells the Jews, "I find no crime in this man." And the Jews began to accuse him of many things. And we read again now, we switch over to Mark's account for just a few verses. And you read Mark through verses 4 through 5 here.
And Pilate again asked him, "Have you no answer to make? See how many charges they bring against you?" But Jesus made no further answer, so that Pilate wondered. But they were urgent, saying, "He stirs up all the people, teaching throughout all Judea, from Galilee even to this place." When Pilate heard this, he asked whether the man was a Galilean.
He's looking for a way out. Under Herod the Great, the entire country had been under the one king. When Herod died, it had been divided 3 different ways, between Archelaus and son Herod Agrippa here, and his son Philip. And this is a chance for him to send him to Herod, who had Perea east of the Jordan and Galilee. But because it was the feast time, Herod was also in Jerusalem.